It's a beautiful day over here in Nigeria, where I'm joining from. Hi, Someleze. How are you doing today?
Hey, Japhlet. I'm doing good. How are you? I'm joining from Durban, South Africa.
Great. And both myself and Someleze are cloud advocates at Microsoft. And we're here to talk with you again about .NET. But this time, we're talking about semantic kernel, which is really cool and amazing. And we hope this session you all would benefit from it. But first, let's see where you all are joining in from. So please use the comment section to tell us where you're joining in from. Let us know what you plan to learn and how you intend to use the knowledge that will be shared during this session. And don't forget to ask your questions using the comment section. We'll be sure to respond to all of them. This series is part of a monthly series which is held on this channel and where we help people to learn about the .NET. We have sessions that focus on Aspire. We've had past sessions that have focused on containers, and now we're focusing on semantic kernel. So stick around and let's tell you more about this cool technology. Great. So, Lizzie,
Yeah, for
would you
sure.
like to tell us
Thanks.
what this session has in store for us?
Yeah, for sure. So today we're going to be looking at a few things. So we have a packed agenda. We're going to look at the overview of what semantic kernel is, and then we're going to showcase some of the learn content that we actually have, like for example, developing an AI agent using Azure OpenAI service and the semantic kernel SDK. Then we will look at the build the kernel module, and then we're going to look at the create plugins for semantic kernel module as well. We're going to get our hands dirty, try to actually build something through the module together during the session. So we're going to Japhlet and I are going to look at the module, and then we're going to be able to try and implement some of the things that are on that module. So make sure that you stick around, and if you have any questions, we also have a Q&A segment of the session so that you can be able to ask your questions. But be sure as well as we're going through this content to put it in the chat and be able to ask questions, engage with us because this session is definitely live. So, Japhlet, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Just before we dive straight in, this session is based off a Microsoft Applied Skills module, and we'll be sharing the link to that with you all. You can, at the end of this session, be able to take all of the modules in the challenge and then go on to take the assessment. These assessments are very important for you to showcase the amazing skills that you have not only learned and built, as we'll see in this session, but also an opportunity for you to showcase to your employees that you are conversant with AI, with .NET, and building amazing stuffs using Azure OpenAI. Great. So that link to the assessment would be shared in the comment section. But yes, as we all know, semantic kernel helps us to actually build AI projects. A lot of times, especially now, we've heard about artificial intelligence, and generative AI is one of the areas of artificial intelligence that makes things really, really easy. Now it's possible for us to integrate it within our applications. Or in the past, building solutions without the power of AI was really, really complex. You have things like writing applications, coding them. Sometimes you have access to data sets that cannot be made, that changes cannot be made to, they are fixed. And that made it really, really complex because at every single time you have to deploy those changes, you need to manage them, and that could cost a lot. But now we have artificial intelligence, which has made things lots easy for us. Artificial intelligence makes it easy for your application to integrate natural language interactions. So people employees, customers could actually come to your application, request for something, ask for something, and your application or your solution would be able to utilize it. Another great part of semantic kernel and artificial intelligence in applications this time is that you can utilize data, but not just utilizing data, you can use this data to actually create your own experiences, to grow, to make better the way your application or your solution integrates with those who are using it. And then there's the beautiful opportunity for your application, your solution to always learn and improve utilizing the data that has been imputed into it. So, Melizzi, would you like to talk more about how this has been able to really bring about innovation?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that we've seen or that we've been really focused on is talking to different enterprises. And what we see is that they kind of over the on the left, as you see on the screen, where they had these AI teams that use Python. They're also used to do machine learning models, but now their scope has changed. And for an example, they're trying to figure out what to do next and how to use generative AI to actually go faster. So they make prompts and they figure out how to connect to different data sources. And after they figured it out, they really need the partnership of the app development teams to move this work into production. So you're trying to get two teams together. So what we've been focused on is actually how do we then have the AI Python teams get started, understand how this actually works, and actually reuse their assets and give them over to their counterparts in the application development teams, the Java teams, .NET teams as well, and also who actually do this every day, that actually focus on monitoring and deployments and maintaining the actual applications, and also be able to take that kind of feedback coming from the customers and go back to the Python teams again and have the circle going on and on. So that is actually what we've been focused on with semantic kernel, is how do you then empower these teams or these enterprise applications development teams to go faster and also learn AI to use the Microsoft services that we have, but really any other services that they need to empower their customers and their employees. And you actually try to have this fusion development team so that you can be able to drive rapid innovation. And also over on the next slide, you can actually see how this actually works hand in hand with all of these teams. And you are able to try and actually bring together the AI teams and the app development teams together in terms of how they can be able to use all of these different services and tools that are available to them in using machine learning models and DevOps, and just trying to create a fusion dev team. And then again, like I mentioned, it actually creates that circle back or that feedback loop back to the AI teams, which those AI teams can be able to bleed edge AI concepts and innovations, and then continue with the process. Japhlet, what are the essential elements of intelligent applications that we can actually look at today?
Yeah, so something that makes applications intelligent or artificially intelligent is the fact that they should be able to utilize data, existing data or models. And here's something cool about intelligent applications that are built on the .NET and on um, on semantic kernel. It's the fact that we are utilizing pre-trained models that have been created by OpenAI. OpenAI is one of the Microsoft partners that work a lot more as the AI team. You can utilize these go-to models and have your work done without having so much errors. The nice thing with all these models now is that they do all these stuffs without us even having to tell them to do it. They do it for us. They have industry knowledge, and they also allow your customers to actually move fast with your application with confidence. There's also the piece of it being available to users in real time, and also being able to handle the data that is given to it in real time from multiple sources, which was a big deal. But now, intelligent applications that are built on these platforms are actually able to utilize this. And then, whatever we're talking about intelligent applications, we're talking about ease. We should never forget to talk about simplicity. It's really, really easy for you to deploy the solution and quickly get them ready in whatever language that programming language that you need to utilize them. It's very easy to be able to utilize it with the power of semantic kernel. And here's what we're here to talk about: how it can benefit you and how you can go on to start building your own intelligent applications using semantic kernel. But Someleze, would you like to talk a little bit about how semantic kernel plays a role in this?
Yeah, for sure. So this is where semantic kernel actually comes in this Copilot stack, for an example. And you have seen or may have heard about all of the different Copilots that we actually have. So what we've seen is that with customers and with a lot of developers, they come to within Microsoft and are looking to have Copilot in their applications or some form of generative AI. So they start off by wanting to build their own Copilot, and they already have all these APIs for all the applications that they've been maintaining or have purchased. So when you look at the orchestrator layer is where semantic kernel actually comes in. And within this layer, we have all those great Azure pieces in the middle where you are able to actually leverage them and be able to use them. So for an example, when you look at the Copilot front end, diving in further, customers would need to be able to do some prompt engineering with using generative AI. They need to be able to know what their prompts are and how they can pass them over to large language models. So in this next one, Meta prompt describes for each AI agent or each bot and what its job description is that why does the agent exist? For an example, if you look at a copilot for a call center, the meta prompt, for an example, would say you're here to help our call center team to find information, retrieve it, and do it in such a way that is helpful and also be able to be fast as they're actually getting this information. So this is something that you can customize for your own scenarios as you're actually building intelligent applications and where you can be able to try to bring in semantic kernel. So for grounding, this is where Azure AI Search and our vector stores really come into play to specify, customer environments. And what is their process is that what is the actual terminology that they're using? Like, for an example, what M&A documents do they have? Those are the things that where grounding can actually come in, where they can be able to ground all of the intelligent applications with their data, with some of the knowledge base that they actually have. And then for the plugin execution, we call into those, and then what happens next is that we go through and we do all of this work. We then execute all of the different plugins and we call all the different endpoints and then return the results back to the customer. So this is how you would actually be able to see this in action today as we go through in one of the Learn modules on how you can be able to create your own plugin for your intelligent application. Japhlet, I don't know if you want to add anything about semantic kernel and how it actually looks at some of the different programming languages that we already know, like .NET, Python, and Java.
Yeah, it's the fact that actually makes it really, really easy for you to utilize any of these languages for whatever processes you need to go about. First, I love the fact that semantic kernel is open source. I also love the fact that it's lightweight, so you really don't need to download lots of things. As we're going to see, you can just quickly integrate into your Visual Studio Code, and then it's going to work for you, whether you're utilizing your Visual Studio or you're utilizing Visual Studio Code. It's because it's lightweight, it's actually easy for you to build your AI agent and then to be able to utilize the latest AI modules whenever you're programming either with C Sharp, .NET, or you're programming with Python, or you're utilizing your Java. It's that middleware layer, right? We take an act that usually comes from your end user, and then what Semantic Kernel does is it find out what things to call, it finds out what models you want to use, it finds out how to orchestrate that from end to end, and then it's going to return the results. And don't forget, you can utilize it whether you are programming with Python, Java, or .NET. That way, no matter what your customers use for their core platforms, they can really get started using Semantic Kernel. The core pillars of this amazing solution is that it is open source. Yes, it is easily accessible, and it utilizes GPT-4, which is the latest version of GPT. And Semantic Kernel came out exactly the time when we knew it was different than the AI that people have seen in the past. We also found it necessary to make this open source. If we put it behind an Azure service, it will be such a black box with questions of how does it work. And then with these insights, customers would not trust it. Making it open source actually made it easy for people to get to understand what it's all about, but also making it completely free and not cost much for people to use semantic kernel was actually something that added more spice to it. So for your customers, they can actually utilize it whenever they need to and wherever they want to utilize it. Something we also know about Copilot, artificial intelligence, majority of applications, majority of applications solutions are built on AI. And so if these systems are not reliable, then it's going to cause a lot of issues. And so Semantic Kernel is fully reliable for you and your organization. Trustworthiness and performance, yes, you can actually use it. We have the responsible AI rules, and this actually guide how artificial intelligence, how solutions, intelligent solutions like semantic kernel are actually utilized. So yes, we apply this and ensure that your data, your solutions, whatever you're building are all safe. Now, touching on the extensibility part, many of our customers are multi-cloud. They use different type of services, and that's one of the things that we try to focus on with Semantic Kernel. We try to focus on how do our customers actually use this solution without migrating to a specific cloud platform. And so Semantic Kernel tries to support all the open source vector stores that are out there. Depending on what their needs are, they have some good options. But then there are some key parts that make up Semantic Kernel. Someleze, would you like to touch these key sections?
Yeah, for sure. So with some, like Japhlet had actually mentioned, there's a few core concepts that you can look at with semantic kernels, and it's actually the ones that you see on the screen. So, for an example, we can use Microsoft Clippy to actually walk through the concept if you know Microsoft Clippy. So you can think of Clippy as your agent. So when we start to talk about personas, you can start to think about Clippy and the persona we wanting it to actually take. So, but before we can make Clippy, we need to connect to data, and we connect the data through APIs, right? So that's what we call a plugin with semantic kernel. And then all it is that is your API connected to some backend system, for an example, if you think about it? Right. So let's say that's, for an example, MSX sales data or any kinds of data that you actually have. And what we do is that we wrap this in a description, just a text native language description to look for top opportunities. The AI will then have the plugin to call, and all I can do, for an example, is that through my authentication, the AI can be able to look at that plugin. And then you can also specify for it to grab your top 10 accounts if you're using a sales data source or database. And it will do that through an API, like I mentioned, using your plugin. And then for planners, which is the other concept within with semantic kernel, is that we have those APIs. Now that you have the understanding of how you can use APIs through plugins with semantic kernels, we have those APIs that you need to do tasking with, and you can create multiple tasks. For an example, like for example, say you need your top 10 accounts, right, from the sales account, and then you needed to review your calendar and have the LLM do the planning for you. And then we can say, here's the question that came in, where you provide a question. So you say here, the plugins, you say here the plugins that actually look like they're probably the right description. And for these, you can be able to pass it over to an LLM, and then you can have the LLM figure out that, oh, these are the steps that you actually would like to take. And then this is how you would then chain together all these APIs or all these plugins, and then we can go and execute that. And then right after that, so that's what you can be able to do with planners within semantic kernel. And then personas, which is the third concept for semantic kernel, in which, in a sense, if you take that Clippy example, for personas, this is where Clippy would actually come in. This is where we take those two pieces, which is the plugins and the planners, and we actually can give the AI agent really a personality, or really good personality, a job description to actually go do and use those different pieces, which you are able to use plugins, planners, and then you bring it together, having a personality for your, in this sense, as we're using the Clippy example, for your Clippy or for your AI agent in this case. Japhlet, can we do a quick dive through on what plugins are?
Yes, so as you mentioned, it makes it really easy for you to utilize other applications. The plugins actually encapsulate capabilities into a single unit of functionality, and it basically sends requests to your AI services through prompts. When you begin to build a plugin for semantic kernel, you can actually leverage it in other services such as your ChatGPT, your Bing, and your Microsoft 365. Likewise, any plugin that's built for those services can also seamlessly import to semantic kernel. For planners, let's say somebody has a request. Now, your planners is able to combine different plugins to fulfill those requests, telling the AI what to do, what to use, and the order in which to do them in. It's a function that takes an ask and then returns a plan on how to accomplish the request by mixing and matching plugins registered in semantic kernel. And then what it does is recombines them into a series of steps to complete the request. At any point in time, you can use alternative strategies to optimize the number of functions that you can call. Quickly, also moving on to personas, it's basically the jack of all trade and the master of none. That's where you have persona. So instead of you having one agent responsible for everything, you have what we call a multi-agent system where individual agents with defined expertise are created. Everyone will have their own personas, everyone will have their own needs. You may need something completely different, like, for example, a supply chain agent or a traffic pattern analyst. That's unique to you, that's unique to your use case. But with these agents, the main RAG requirements are handled. So think of vector storage, you think of retrieval, you think of generation, all of those different pieces are handled by the agent. Yes, personas more like you being a helpful agent, and personas actually helps you to that. All of these contents again are based off the Microsoft Learn module, and we'll be sharing the link to that Microsoft Learn module has already been shared in the comment section, but we're also going to be displaying that here in the screen. So also be sure to follow along in that Microsoft Learn module. And just in case any bits we miss, you are sure to catch it up there in the Microsoft Learn module. Great. So we've spoken a whole lot about semantic kernel and all the great things that you can do with it. There are lots of other things to talk about, how people can utilize semantic kernel and how they can get started building amazing solutions with semantic kernel. I think we should actually dive straight into this Someleze, right?
Yeah, for sure. We can just get right into it and actually get our hands dirty. I've been waiting for this.
Great. So just before we get straight in, I wanted to acknowledge some of the amazing people joining in this live stream. First, we have CCPRN Hussein. He was about starting off a semantic kernel project. Thanks for joining us all the way from Norway. And then we have Promise, who is joining us from Malawi, and Lydia, who is joining us from Nigeria. Great. So this point, let's dive straight in. And over next, we're going to be showing you what the assessment actually looks like and how you can get started. Great. So this module, this session again, as I had mentioned, is based off this assessment, the develop AI agents using Microsoft Azure OpenAI and Semantic Kernel assessment. When you come over to the link, you would be able to access this assessment. But to help you pass the assessment successfully, what we are trying to do is actually make it walk through the
Um,
different solution, walk through the different piece. Can you see my screen, Someleze?
yeah, I was about to say, we were just waiting for it to pop up. It hasn't loaded as of
Okay,
yet. Um,
so let me
uh,
try sharing again, and
yeah, for sure.
hopefully that should come up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in the meantime, I'll just quickly share back onto the slides. Just like Japhlet had mentioned, you can be able to use the semantic kernel. Remember the core concepts for semantic kernel that you have your plugins, your planners, and personas. Japhlet, let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, so I can see a question in the comment section just before I go back to my screen. And the question is, what is semantic kernel and where is it used? Would you like to respond to that, Someleze?
Yeah, for sure. So how you can actually look at semantic kernel, like for an example, is how you can be able to bring in the element of AI in actually building intelligent applications. So it could be, for an example, you want an already existing application to actually bring in an element of artificial intelligence, like what we were talking about today with building an agent that has all of these different core components of semantic kernel, where you would have your plugins, your planners, and your personas. So you could build an agent that obviously when you use a plugin, you're able to interact with some of the APIs to actually get information from your data store, your data source. And then in this case, you also have planners for semantic kernel that actually enable you to achieve more. And then in this case, you are able to give a persona to that intelligent application using semantic kernel so that you can be able to have, like, for example, you see on the screen, we have different personas where you have a project manager agent where you are able to use the ability of, your natural language to actually query some of the data that you have in your data store, where you're looking for, let's say, for example, top 10 sales that you have in your data store, and then you will be able to pop back up that information in natural language instead of actually showing you an executed query, for an example. So it's stuff like that.
Great, and I hope that answers your questions, Scooby-Doo. Thank you again for asking it, and thank you, Kerry Campbell, who is joining in from Germany. So I'm going to share my screen again, and let me know if it's up on the screen now.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, but seems to be a little blur. So what I'm going to do is utilize my other screen just so it's really easy for everyone to actually be able to see it. So great. Now let me know when this screen comes up.
Yeah, for sure. But while we wait for your screen to actually come up, Japhlet, this is something that we're going to look at a little bit later on, as I saw that question about what is semantic kernel, on how you are then be able to manage some of the personas that you may have as you're building the solution, you're building this intelligent application. We're going to look at this a bit later, but I'm really burning to actually get our hands dirty to see that demo from Japhlet. So Japhlet, we can see your screen. So let's see if we can add it to the stream.
Okay, good. Great. So I mentioned this entire session is based off the applied skills develop AI agents using Microsoft Azure OpenAI and Semantic Kernel. You can go on to take this assessment at the end of this session, and once you have completed actually learning the different things, amazing things from the Microsoft Learn Path. The Microsoft Learn Path contains six modules. First, you're going to learn how to build your kernels. We already gave an introduction into what semantic kernel is about and how you utilize it. You're also going to learn how you can create your plugins for semantic kernel and how you can give your AI agent skills as well as utilizing prompts and functions and function calling. But here's the best part. Not just learning about these things, you can actually build a solution. We're talking about this solution later on, but then when you take the assessment and when you go over the learn path, you would be able to actually build this project yourself and showcase it to your employees, to whomever needs to you need to showcase it to, and they too can see the amazing stuffs that you have built with semantic kernel. As mentioned, this learning path contains 6 modules, and within this, you're going to learn the basics of semantic kernel. But first piece we have to take note of in semantic kernel is we're connecting to the cloud. Because we're building our AI services, we're connecting to Azure, we'll be using Azure as our cloud service and then utilizing the Azure OpenAI service. OpenAI, like we said, is one of the partners working to bring intelligent applications to to Microsoft platform and also enable everyone who utilizing these platforms to build intelligent applications. So let's dive straight into the first module and we would together be walking through each of the steps in this module. First thing you would need to do, as you can see from this module, is to create your endpoints. So let's go over to the beginning. You're going to learn what semantic kernel is all about and prompting basics. You need to understand that and you need to learn techniques for effective prompts. We first need to create our resource on Azure which we are going to connect, and then go over to create our Azure OpenAI service, our Azure OpenAI resource. You most likely know how to create a resource, but if you don't, you come over here, you click on create a resource, input all of the details that are relevant, and then you're going to have a resource group. You will need to create an artificial intelligence and Azure OpenAI resource group. Within the Azure OpenAI resource group, you would need to create a an Azure OpenAI resource. So you can head over and create your Azure OpenAI resource within that. Once you have done that, you should have something like this. You would be able to find your keys and endpoints. Your keys and endpoints are very important. Some things to take note of. Remember that your keys are unique to you and your solution, then ensure that nobody has access to this keys. And then you have your endpoint. We'll be utilizing this endpoint to be able to write and read from our OpenAI data. You can come over to the model development deployment, and here you are able to actually create a model. We're going to be using the GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K to be able to actually build our models. You can use other versions depending on what you intend to do, but for the sake of this module, we'll be utilizing GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K. You come over to create your deployment, and you should. What is going to happen when you have created that is you are going to then be able to deploy all of your solutions, whatever solutions you have created. You will be able to deploy your models, and then those models that have been deployed can then um, be utilized for whatever you need to do. Now, something else that needs to be taken note of is when you come over to your Azure OpenAI service, you can actually first, while creating your model, you have to take note that you have to create what we call a chat completion model, because for this module, that is what we would actually be utilizing. Great. So now you have set up the online section. You've done all the things you need to do, created a resource group, and all the other things that can actually get you started with your application. Let's dive into the other parts and go straight into how we can actually get this stuff done utilizing our. So I'm bringing this over. Our Visual Studio, as mentioned earlier, you can either utilize Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio. So here I have my Visual Studio. Now, if you're doing this for the first time, something you have to take note of is the fact that you would need to actually utilize certain or install certain Nugget packages, right? So, as stated in the Microsoft Learn module, first you have to create a console application using. So, let me go over and show you that step. So, first thing you will need to do is you will come over, and in Visual Studio Code, you're adding this package. So, you have to include this, adding your package, your Microsoft Semantic Kernel package if you're utilizing Visual Studio Code. But then you also need to realize that all of them might not actually be installed. So usually what you need to do is go over to Visual Studio, and in Visual Studio, you come over to your tools, and you would find Nugget Package Manager, and here you can manage Nugget packages. Come over to the browse section and look for semantic kernel. and then ensure that you have all the semantic kernel um, packages installed. You need semantic kernel dot Microsoft dot semantic kernel dot core. You need Microsoft dot semantic kernel, and you need Microsoft. If possible, install all of them. But then, depending on what you are building, you might just need Microsoft dot semantic kernel and Microsoft dot semantic kernel dot core. Now, your Microsoft Learn module also shows you how to actually get started. And let's go over here. It tells you to input this code here, and this line of code actually utilizes semantic kernel, right? What it's doing here is actually creating a kernel for you. It's creating a builder, and then we are going to be utilizing Azure OpenAI chat completion, which I mentioned earlier. For the sake of this module, you will need to utilize chat completion. And then remember, I also mentioned keys and endpoints. So here you will need to input your keys. I showed you earlier. Your endpoints, that link I also showed you earlier. Don't forget your keys are very important and they should not be made accessible to people. And then your module ID for this specific resource, for this specific session, will be using the GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K. This is what our application is going to look like. So just save this in. I have my endpoint and I have my model ID. I don't have my key, but I'm going to add that and I'll show you how it works. Next is another piece of code which actually utilizes prompts. So remember, you need to be able to tell your AI system, intelligent applications, they're able to understand what we want to do, what we are trying to build, what we're trying to develop. And to get them to really understand, you have to actually utilize prompts. Prompts makes it possible for them to actually understand what you're trying to say. And then there's a piece, once you input those prompts, these AI systems try to get the intent. So there's a piece called intent. They try to get the intent, they try to understand what you're trying to do, what you want, and then they go on to give a response. So we're going to test this out on Visual Studio, and then we're going to move over to Visual Studio Code and also test this out and continue building our solution. Right? I'm going to take this out and I'm going to input my key, but then you are going to see what it finally looks like when I share the prompt with you all. So just a minute and I'm going to stick in my key here. And then I would run this console application and share it with you. So still running. Let's see. And here we have our console application. It's empty, it's still running. So hold on a bit and we should be able to get the final results of it. Great. So remember our prompt was, so let me take out my key again and let me bring in my Visual Studio this way. So remember our prompt. Our prompt was, give me a list of breakfast foods with cheese, with eggs and cheese. And what it's doing for us here from the result is actually giving us 10 of those. First, to have scrambled eggs with melted cheese, omelette with cheese filling, eggs Benedict with melted cheese on English muffin, and a couple of others. Okay, so Someleze, which of these are you conversant with? Are you I don't know. Have you had any of this before?
Not entirely sure, actually. But I think I have had an omelette with cheese filling, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, cool. I hope it tasted nice. But this it has taken our prompt. It has tried to understand what our intent is, and then it's giving us this response. Great. So going over the Microsoft Learn module, you would be able to successfully create both your endpoints as we've shown you, and then also be able to create your um, kernel object. Now notice something, that the response we have in the Microsoft Learn module is actually, well, not totally different, but a little bit different from the response we got. And that's because as artificial intelligence, as intelligent as these applications, as it utilizes our models, it gets better, and it just becomes more and more intelligent as time goes on. Now, I'll show you how to build this using Visual Studio. For those who are probably using Visual Studio Code, let me also bring my Visual Studio Code interface here, and I'm going to show you what this actually looks like. So again, I have taken out, and I'm sure this is readable enough. Someleze, able to see it? Should I
Just
probably zoom
a,
in?
a little bit of zoom in should be good.
Does this
Yeah,
work?
perfect.
Okay, great. So here we have the same set of code. We have our endpoints, we have our deployment name, we have our model, and then we're building this entire solution to test it out or asking something, same list of breakfast foods. But then let's try something. Let's see, can anybody in the comment section probably help us with a prompt that we can include here? Or Someleze, maybe you can help us with a prompt, and let's see how well Semantic Kernel and Azure OpenAI can collaborate to give us some great responses. So what should we do, Someleze?
Um, let's say, give me a list of, um, I don't know if we say dinner foods with mac and cheese.
Okay, so though I still have my cheese there, dinner foods with, sorry, I didn't get with
Mac,
what?
mac, macaroni or mac and cheese.
Okay, so this would work, or should I spell that fully? Right?
Let's try it out, even if it's not spelled out fully. We'll see.
Okay, great. So what we're going to do next is something else to mention, and I'm going to mention this when utilizing your semantic kernel. If this is your, sorry, utilizing your Visual Studio Code, if this is your first time and you have imputed your Visual Studio Code, if there is code in your Visual Studio Code, don't worry, don't be scared. The Learn module would actually help you get started. But you come over and you should be able to find this specific folder at the folder here. You see my escape project. Let's click this. Oops. And I'm going to use this and open up an integrated terminal. So what it's going to do is actually giving you the opportunity to reference this specific file. So just in case you probably, um, you probably just find that, then you'll also understand what's going on. And you can see it has been opened in semantic in my terminal. Sorry. Now I've imputed my line of code I need to input my key. So that is for security, and I'm going to input my key. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to bring it back, and then I'm going to save it. Don't worry, you won't be able to see that. And then I'll just do .NET run. And what's going to happen is it's going to run this solution for me, and you should be able to see the response. Oh, have you had any of this?
Well, I've had mac and cheese, but now with the extra steps that it actually provided on the response.
Great. So these are responses. Have you ever had any of this? Have you heard of them before?
Yeah, like I said, I've only had the mac and cheese, but now with the extra ingredients that it actually put on the response. But I think I have an idea of what I'm gonna have next time.
Great. So semantic kernel and OpenAI is actually making it possible for us to do this. Now, you could also go over to the Learn module. Once you have built yours, try out different responses and get to see how it works. Now, from the module, the next piece is actually utilizing plugins, which is cool. Remember, we spoke about plugins and we said plugins actually gives you the opportunity to connect to other things and be able to make your solution even more intelligent. So, Someleze, would you like to walk us through plugins and how they work?
Yeah, for sure. Let me just quickly switch back to my screen. Um, Hopefully I can do that quickly. I'm just gonna add it to the screen. So if you see my screen again, this learn module, this is also in a learn module as well on how you can be able to create plugins for semantic kernel. It has all of the information that you may need to go through the learn module. Excuse me, I like dark mode. I'm a developer at heart. We like dark mode because light mode attracts bugs. But it has a few units that you can actually go through on the Learn module on how you can be able to create plugins, what are plugins with semantic kernel, how you can be able to optimize some of the plugins. Like for an example, here it uses language and model prompts, and which we'll see just now. Uh, we can also write our own prompts and so forth. So if I just quickly switch on the introduction, it'll give you some of the learning objectives, um, what the semantic kernel SDK for is, and also the plugins that you can be able to use with it. So we're gonna be following one of these units here. So it gives you just a basic overview of what these are. And you can see here we have some code that we can be able to use here to actually be able to start playing around with the plugins on our Visual Studio Code. So on our Visual Studio, we're not going to be using VS Code. So what we're going to focus on is how you can be able to use a plugin inside of Visual Studio with semantic kernel. So this is what we're going to do. We'll have this repo so that we can be able to have that project and be able to use it in Visual Studio. So what I'm going to try to do is actually bring over Visual Studio, which is also in dark mode. So you'll have to forgive me. First, I need to grab the link to the repository here. So I'm just going to copy that. Go back to Visual Studio, choose clone a repository, just input that in here and change the directory because I've already used it before. So we are going to look for let's learn.net, which is our session. Select this folder, and then we're gonna clone the repo in there, and then I'm just gonna select clone. And hopefully, if this quickly does it, we'll just quickly do it and put it on my Visual Studio just quickly, and then we can be able to start playing around and start creating some of the plugins and still doing what it needs to do. Hopefully, I won't be missing any packages, but hopefully, yeah, we're back. Okay, so we have a few steps that we're going to have to go through on the Learn module in on itself. As we're going to be going through the steps in the Learn module, you'll see it in Visual Studio. We're going to be able to use a plugin. For an example, this is a few steps that we actually have to do. So we have to right-click on the actual project, open it in an integrated terminal, and then be able to expand the folder and then see the program CS file. So if we go back to Visual Studio, hopefully that's done. And if I'm not mistaken, if we right-click here, and then I just say open in terminal, hopefully I can be able to see that program file. There's a program file, which is the one that we're going to be using for this demo. If you can't see, I can try to actually zoom in. So this is not something that you actually didn't see with what Japhlet was actually showcasing earlier on. So we will need some of the details that we're going to use for the Azure OpenAI model that's deployed by Japhlet. So we'll need the deployment name, the endpoint, the API key, and then obviously here we just be able to use the kernel that was already created and be able to start trying to call the Azure OpenAI model that was actually deployed by Japhlet. So in this case, we already have like a working prompt, which is similar to what Japhlet showcased earlier on. But in our case, we're going to be using it for a completely different reason. So before I show you this, I'm just going to quickly fill in some of these details, just quickly, which is the deployment name, which obviously I can do in front of you, but again, for security purposes, I'm not going to do it there. So I'm just going to put the deployment name and put the endpoint, which is similar to the one that Japhlet actually showcased earlier on, which is that one. And then I bring back Visual Studio here. So you see, I've filled in the deployment name, I've filled in the endpoint, and I can basically run the same thing that Japhlet actually did earlier on. But in this case, we can actually try to do something else. So need to actually start filling out. And then you see, for example, trying to get the user's intent from what I'm seeing. And then from that, we'll need. Oh, yes, I'm back. So here's a few things that we will need to do, like, for example, getting the user's intent and then being able to get some actions out of this. For example, we can use this code to actually use the plugin, right? So we can just quickly copy this so that we can move faster. I like that because we have the option to actually use the code that's already existing on Microsoft Learn. And then I'm just going to try to replace almost everything that's here. Just replace this with this new code. Oops, I replaced something I wasn't supposed to replace. So let's say let's remove that and just revert back to make it quicker. Okay, and then just replace it now. And then we go say var builder is equal to kernel dot create builder. That is not how it was earlier on. So we just put that. Let's see, and then now it's talking about the plugin that so that we don't have to debug live. Just
Yeah.
put back what was already.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
for
Sorry,
sure.
I just wanted to mention you missed the piece of having the deployment name, the endpoints. We're not taking that out, or just taking out the kernel and give me a list of breakfast foods with eggs
So
and
yeah,
cheese.
so I can remove this part. But from what we need on this here, we just need, well, actually we need these few parts here, and then we come back here. Hopefully that's not going to give me an issue. And then here, it seems like it wants something here, conversation summary, which is the plugins. Let's see if I can be able to find it. So let's see, Microsoft dot semantic kernel. The dot core has to be this. I think I am missing something, which is, let's come here. We may have missed
Yeah.
a step. Yes, we did. We didn't add the package. So what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to use this in the terminal. See, you have to read through the steps when you are going through this learn module to actually complete it. So here we first need a package, which is the package that's going to allow us to actually use the plugins in our application, and then can we be able to have this part up and running. So we're going to come back here, and I'm just going to try and see if I can't open this in the terminal again. So if I say open in terminal, so that I can be able to run that package. I mean, I can still use the Nugget package manager to actually add that, but in this case, I'm just going to try to use the terminal and see if we can be able to do that. And then once I press enter, it will try to actually add the package that I actually need for the project. And then I can just close this part, just go back here. Let's see. Hopefully it actually added it, unless otherwise, let's see. Oh, I removed everything there. Ooh, hold on. First, I need to get rid of this error. Just gonna close my presentation quickly because it seems like it's using up my resources quite a lot on my PC, so that we can be able to have a smooth sailing. Just remove this, just put it back here at the top. That's fine. We're gonna try this one more time. Hopefully the demo codes are actually with us this time around. Then, wrong thing to paste. Let's say .NET add package alpha. Let's see if it actually adds it. Double check. I hope it actually added it. But if that doesn't work, we can then be able to open one file that we can just walk through of walk through a project that I actually did earlier on. So I'll just open that since that is actually not working out well. So what's the name of this project? It's MS Learn. This one. And then I'm just gonna open. Don't save this one. It's fine. To actually look as we go
Yeah,
through.
happens a couple of times to anyone.
Yeah, for sure. So as you go through these,
And for those currently on the live stream who
as you go,
probably might have this issue, they should just be aware that it could happen along the way. And don't be scared. You can reach out to any of us whenever you need some help.
yep, for sure. So if we switch back to my Visual Studio, so I'll show you what I was missing. So I didn't want to debug that live. So it's this part at the top here where we find the using, we say, okay, using semantic kernel plugins.core. And then I'm just going to remove that quickly so that you don't use my API key. And then I have my deployment name, I have my end, have all of those things. So what we're going to do, we're going to do this quickly together again. I'm just going to bring back this part of this code so that we can do it together. And then I am going to remove these guys here, including just paste that. And then result should be not this guy. We should go back to the result. So we have it double declared. So we go back to just comment this. So comment this part out, right? Because it was saying, oh, you have two results. What do you want to do with those two? Right. So, okay, fine. And then what we can do, I want to see if I can be able to run to do a .NET run here. So if I say .NET run, before I do that, I have to save first. And then I press enter in my terminal, but I can also opt to actually just run it or just debug it quickly, and then it will just run the application for me, and it will show me the results there. What it will do, it will try to actually get the intent or the action, get the action items from the specific text, and then once that's done, it will be able to actually showcase the results there. Let's see if we can actually try it. I want to debug it, so let's try this. Let's see. So it's building. Hopefully it won't take too long. Right. And then if it shows you this error here on here, it might not be very visible to you. It shows you this error. It's because the API key is not inputted. So if you forget it at some point, just know that it will show you an error like this, and you may at the first time you may not be able to figure out that it's actually because you're missing an API key. Remember, I removed my API key, so I have to put it back on my program. So I'm gonna get away from the live stream quickly, and then I'm just gonna put back my API key there. Hopefully it's still there. So I'm just gonna put it back, run the program, trust me, it's running, and then just bring it back. So in my case, if you see here on the screen, in my case, it hasn't been able to pull out the action items, but you can be able to get the action items out of the user intent on the code. So I'm just going to remove my API key and bring back Visual Studio to you guys. In my case, it wasn't able to actually pull out the action item. So you can see that it has like an empty object or empty array. And then if you go back to Visual Studio, it's supposed to actually pull out the action items out of this input. Now, What's next to actually use, to see how we can be able to use this and yield some results. In some instances, these are the action items that it was supposed to actually take out, as you see on the learn module, which would be like similar to that and not actually that. But in an instance where maybe you want to optimize your language models, your optimized language model for prompts, you can be able to move over to the next part of this presentation, or part of this demo, in which you'll be able to actually see now changing the input to, for an example, we want to get a different result. So here we still have the same input. So we use the same input. Now we can be able to create like a template, create prompt templates. And as you can see, it's the same kind of code where you have your deployment name, your endpoint, your API, and your deployment model. And what you see here on the screen, if I try to zoom in on this code, we have history, and history is more on just having a prompt that actually says, in the heart of my busting kitchen, I have embraced, like giving the model some history of what you're trying to do. And then here's a prompt here that says, this is some information about the user's background. And then you provide that history. You pass through that history that was inputted, and then you proceed with your prompt and you say, given this user's background, provide a list of relevant recipes. So I don't want to try that out. The one I actually want to try out is the write your own prompt. In this case, this one is more on just using language. So we're going to use this code on our Visual Studio. So what we're going to do, again, we're just going to borrow this here, replace our code, replace it in our code. So we're going to remove what we already have here, just replace it. Let's remove the ones that we don't actually use here so that we can keep it more clean. So what this will do, it says, okay, you pass through the language French, and then after that, you press in the prompt and say, okay, create a list of helpful phrases and words in passing through the language, which is French in this case, a traveler would find useful. And in our case, if I save this, and then again, I just go back, hide this so that I don't show my API key. I just paste it in and run it so that you can be able to see on the screen. Just waiting for the results to actually see. See that happening. Let's try that again. So I'm just going to close this and run the application to say, and then I'll just bring back my output window. So I'll just make that a little bit on a white background. So our prompt said, create a list of helpful phrases and words in, and then we passed in that language, which was French. And then a traveler would actually find useful. In this case, it would be bonjour, hello, merci, which is thank you, and so forth, as a traveler that you would find useful. Now, I am tempted to change the language here and change it to Zulu because, yes, of course, I'm in South Africa, and one of the 11 official languages in South Africa is Zulu. Let's try it for Zulu. So I'm going to close this output window, and then as it runs in the background, I'm just going to put it here. And then if I show you the output, so hello is sawubona in Zulu in South Africa, goodbye is salagahle, and thank you is ngiyabonga in Zulu here, which is one of the official languages. So you can be able to pass in a different language there. So I'm going to bring back Visual Studio, but I'm not going to scroll to the top because you'll see my API key. But you can be able to pass in the language of your choice and the prompt that you're going to use, which is creating a list of helpful phrases and words in this specific language a traveler would find useful. All in all, still being able to use our friend here, which is being able to, create to use a plugin. This plugin here, earlier on, the first code that we actually ran was to actually get action items out of that specific prompt. Okay, let's try it one more time before we actually run out of time. Let's try to improve our prompt. So in this case, we still have this, which is creating a list of helpful phrases and words in the language and a traveler would find useful, and then group those phrases by category, display the phrases in the following format, which is hello, ciao, and then we'll see a result. So I'm just going to copy this part of the prompt and then we'll go back to Visual Studio. But the result that we're going to see is a result that actually looks like this, where it'll put them or classify them in, categories, which is restaurant phrases, and then you'll have transportation phrases. Let's try that for our application. Let's see how it actually does with a South African language. And then put that. And then if we run the application again, we should see a result. So as we wait for the result here, it will actually try to actually categorize the responses that actually gave you all of the responses that actually gave you all of the responses based off of the language that you provided. Again, then I'm just gonna run the application again to see if we're gonna have results showing up. But this is you updating your prompt. So you don't have to, with using generative AI and with semantic kernel in this case, you don't necessarily have to just use the prompts, the only prompts that you see on the learn module. You can be able to expand and build upon the prompt that you have based off of the results that you're looking for. So if, for an example, we have results coming back, you remember the first prompt that we gave it was very simplistic, just getting those helpful phrases, which is hello, thank you in French or in Zulu. But in this case, as we updated our prompt, it came back with more sophisticated results. So I'm just gonna make this so that it can be able to be visible to you. So it says, can you help me, Ungangi Caesar? And it's grouping them in a way. So for an example, here it says, these are greetings in Zulu. And then here, if you want to get around, so this is the category called getting around. These are phrases that you can be able to use as a traveler. And then for transportation, for an example, these are the phrases that you can use. So if you're speaking English and you say you need a taxi in Zulu in South Africa, if you come into South Africa, whether you go to Durban, where I stay, you would say ngidinga itekisi, which is I need a taxi in Zulu. And then if it's for accommodation and so forth, these are the phrases that you would actually have. So this is more on building on the prompt that the prompt that you actually provided to your application or to your intelligent application using it, because what this actually does on the learn module is just actually improve upon or improve the prompt that you actually have, that you've been using this entire time. So you improve on that and you continuously use that over and over again. But with this learn module, what I want to actually show you is that you update your prompt to this text based off of what you want to do. In this case, here with this part of the code is that you actually provide history now. You're saying I'm traveling with my kids and one of them has a peanut allergy. So that in your prompt you can actually provide that history and you say, hey, consider the traveler's background, and then you provide or you pass through the history, which is traveling with kids, that one of them has a peanut allergy. Then can you create those that list of helpful phrases and words in Zulu or French a traveler would find useful, and then be able to group those phrases by category and include common direction words, which is displaying those phrases in the following format as you would have. So it would come out like this. And then what I also want to bring to your attention is that in your prompts, you can also be able to use personas. Spoke about personas earlier on. So still, you would still be using the same type of code, but in this case, you're just expanding on your prompt. And in this case, the part that actually has a persona is this. It says begin with, here are some phrases in which is it's much more friendly, which you may find helpful, and end with, I hope this helps you on your trip. So if, for an example, I take this prompt as it is, so I'm just gonna try to grab this history like this. I'm just gonna grab this history, go back to our code, and just put history here, and then update my prompt to what we have here, for an example. So I'm just gonna copy it like this. Update my prompt with that information. So I'm just going to change that. In this case, you're a travel assistant. You are helpful, creative, and very friendly. Consider the traveler's background. You see that part at the top actually tells your AI agent to be more friendly. What is that? That is actually a persona that begin with. Here are some helpful phrases in that language, and we actually provide that end of our solution or of the results that it actually provides. So we put that part at the end, and once it does that, obviously now you have an AI agent that actually has a persona. So I'm not going to run this. I just wanted to actually quickly give you an idea of how you can be able to build upon your prompts and actually use plugins as well. So you saw earlier on when we were trying to use that earlier input where we were actually trying to get action items out of the the input that the user gave it, so that we can be able to have like a conversation summary and then get those action items out of that specific conversation. So again, you can go through this module on your own and start implementing some of these. You see here, you can update your prompt to this following text. This is now, you're more being more specific, and you're giving roles to the different actors of this specific conversation. So you have a user, you have an assistant, and you also have a user, and so forth. So you can be able to go through this on your own. Very easy. Like I showed you earlier on, you just clone this project onto your Visual Studio or your Visual Studio Code. You can still do this with Visual Studio Code. And then once you've done that, you can be able to build upon the prompts that are given in the Learn module and be creative and use your own prompt, use your own language. In this case, I used Zulu, which is one of the official languages here in South Africa. So use some of the languages that you think you may find useful, and actually see how this AI agent is making your application much more intelligent. So with that, I'll stop our demo here. And then what I'm going to try to do and actually hand it over back to Japhlet. But hopefully, you guys, if you have any questions, you can be able to put them in the comment section, and then be able to, we can be able to answer your questions. You're on mute, Japhlet. You're still on mute somehow. I still can't hear you. Waiting for you to come off of mute. We still can't hear you. I think even schizophrenic web developer says he can't hear you. So whilst I wait for Japhlet to unmute himself, just gonna bring back my screen. just a few last things that we actually want to share with you. Let's see, share screen. All right. So, whilst I wait for Japhlet to sort out his audio, that actually brings us towards the end of our presentation. But before we actually go, what I actually want to also speak about is you saw on the last demo that we did in creating plugins and so forth. In this case, now we also added in a persona for the AI agent. So with semantic kernel, in this case, back into to the screen. Right. Hey, Japhlet, are you still here? Still can't hear you. But yeah, like I said, you will need to be able to manage the personas because you need a way to call the right agent, the right agent at the right time. So with plugins, you can be able to have planners that orchestrate other agents. In this case, this means that you'll be able to leverage the power of your plugins and planners to invoke the agent best suited for the request that you have. So for an example, if an ask came in and I need to write a blog post as we write blogs mostly in most cases. I have, a project manager agent. And what I've done is that from a project manager agent, I've given it a job description, which the cool thing is that I want to write a blog post, for example, with that agent, and it's going to be on how awesome Azure is for scale, for an example. And the AI will then need to do a little bit of research. So I know I have research. So once the research agent is done, so you can see the different agents that I have here. Once that's done, we then do a task number two, which is a copywriter, which is going to do a copy based on the research that's been done, and then which is then also a dependency until the step one is done. The first step is done. Step two can't just start. So you need to be able to have these different personas, these different agents that you can be able to use that will be able to complete the variety of tasks that you have. So I want to write that blog, I'll need that researcher agent to research about that specific topic, a copywriter agent for its specific task, and a designer agent so that you can be able to manage the personas for that intelligent application that you're actually building. Japhlet, I see that you're back with us. Are you still on mute or still can't hear you? Yeah, still can't hear you, but which is odd. That's fine. But the last thing that I actually want, or second last thing that I want us to leave you with is that for semantic kernel, as we mentioned, it's enterprise ready. All our kernels are 1.0. The other thing that we've seen a lot of people actually try to do is that what they try to do is that they start with chat because that's what we do. We want to chat, and they look at Microsoft as the leader. What we want to see though is that especially in the last probably 4 or 5 months is chat's good, when you're chatting with your intelligent application. So when you start to really focus on how do I bring high productivity to my employees and to my customers, voice is the next thing that we start to see that people actually like or are like, this is great. I can type, but what if I need to be hands-free, for an example? What if my customers, an industrial customer or something, and they need to walk around or they need to use both hands at the same time or even for accessibility, right? So that's what we start to support with semantic kernels, that we already support these things like voice, video, and images. You can start to have there's multi-modalities to really help our customers or people engage in different ways. And then the thing that's going to be coming, most customers or most people are not on this, is the third pillar yet, but we'll probably see towards the end of the calendar year that they're going to start to ask about AI agents. They're going to start to want to have AI agents go and do work for me, in which that's how, you have to start try to think of ways how you can be able to make those apps intelligent, and then obviously look at the different focus areas with using semantic kernel, and so forth. Then one last thing, as we've talked about this bridge within semantic kernel, we've talked about semantic kernel with Japhlet, is that this chasm between the machine learning developers and the application developers. So again, we've been really focused on crossing that specific bridge, which has been great, so that you can be able, have fusion teams that are able to take positive advantage of the tools and resources that I actually have, and be able to collaborate in a much more productive manner. Japhlet, is there anything else that you
Yeah.
want to share?
Yeah. So please confirm you can hear me clearly now.
Yes.
Okay. I just had to drop off and join in. I'm not sure what happened, but one of those things that could happen along the way. I wanted to say thank you very much to Someleze for teaching me how to learn Zulu, just in case at any point in time I probably am in South Africa and you don't teach me that language. I'll get to learn it utilizing semantic kernel, intelligent applications, and AI. And for everyone who has joined, think of scenarios that you can apply this knowledge that has been shared. We have dealt with charts. You can think of other scenarios where you could utilize semantic kernel to actually make your applications intelligent. And it's always, as Someleze has mentioned, always great to see collaboration between two parties. Those who have industry experience, those who are good with researching, and those who are actually able to build the solutions and bring them to life. And people can actually go from one point to another. If you're a machine learning researcher or you're an application developer with semantic kernel, it's actually easy for you to go from one point to another without having to do much or learn much. And I think that's something great about the power of artificial intelligence and all the cool things that you can do with it. It makes it really easy. You have your codes, you have your models, you have memories, you have your prompts, all coming together, working together to bring to come up with amazing solutions. But here's something interesting about this entire session, this entire assessment, the applied skills assessment, and also the Microsoft Learn modules and parts. You get to build a project. Because of time, we will not be able to touch on that. But the last module in this Microsoft Learn path actually walks you through how you can impute all of these different things we've shown you how to build your kernel, how to build your applications, utilize your plugins, just how to go over, check it out, try it out, and see how it works. And if along the way you probably have questions for us, don't forget to share your experiences on Twitter using the hashtags that are currently being displayed at the bottom of the screen. It's been an interesting session, Similizi. Thank you very much for doing this with me. 100% appreciated. Thank you to everybody who has also joined this entire stream. We're sure you have benefited in one way or another. But maybe we should finally go through the comment section and see if anybody has any questions or comments just before we get done with this. So I can see Karim Campbell who is saying he is excited about Ulama connector. Yes, pretty excited about it too. And seeing how you can utilize this using semantic kernel. Don't forget, if you have any questions, please be sure to share them with us. You can also reach out to myself or Someleze, just search our full names, and we would be sure to reach out to them. And joining any of the semantic kernel community is also a great place for you to get started with this. The semantic kernel documentation would also be another great place. The link is also being displayed at the bottom of the screen. So be sure to take a look at it, take notes of it, and utilize that. And if you need to have access to the GitHub repository, yes, that's a semantic kernel GitHub repository, and you too can also have access to it. So there are loads and loads of resources, both physical human resources like myself and Someleze, and online resources that we have shared with you that we believe would go a long way in helping you build intelligent applications. We can't wait to see what you do, what amazing stuff you come up with, and how you actually utilize this in the real world. Are there any final thoughts from you, Someleze?
Yeah, this has been actually great. It's been quite fun to showcase how you could be able to use Semantic Kernel and how you can be able to use plugins and then be able to provide a persona for your agent using Semantic Kernel and .NET in this case. So I've had fun. Like I said earlier on, we are getting our hands dirty with what we're trying to do today. So make sure that you guys, like Japhlet has mentioned, that you actually try this out on your own. And if you have any questions, be sure to join the community. Be sure to reach out to me and Japhlet, whether be it on LinkedIn, you can search for our full names, or on X. You can search for us at Diko Someleze. That's my handle. I'm pretty sure Japhlet will share his. And you can be able to ask questions there, and then we can be able to get back to you. But yeah, it's been fun. Thank you to everyone that's actually joined today. We didn't finish the demos on purpose because we wanted you to actually get your hands on so that you can be able to start learning and building something using Semantic Kernel.
Great. And don't also forget to join for the next Let's Learn.net episode. We have had past episodes where we get to talk about different parts of .NET. You can be sure to check out all of those so you can get started learning and building amazing .NET solutions. Okay, so we've shared lots of resources. I think it's been a great one. But don't forget to check out all of these resources. They are for you. We designed them, we created them for you. Be sure to use them. So we're happy, and so the reasons for creating this are actually fulfilled. So give you all amazing intelligence applications to help you all develop and build great solutions. Until the next Let's Learn.net episode, thank you very much to everybody who has joined us. And wherever you are, morning, afternoon, evening, do have a great day ahead. Bye, everyone. See you on the other side. Someone is
Bye, everyone. Bye, Japhlet.